בשם השם נעשה ונצליח, שיעור תורה, ברוכים הבאים. We are back here on our Wednesday night Stump the Rabbi, where after a little bit of Divrei Torah and Chizuk, you guys will ask some questions and HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'ezrat Hashem will give us some answers. Tonight's shiur will go for a refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Moshiach ben Avigail ve'Avraham, Orit bat Ilana, David ben Nesriya, Doris bat Jora, Talia bat Sarah, Yitro ben Avraham, and also Rabbi Ephraim ben Shulamit, and also for a Atzlacha Rabbah and Zivug Agun for Netanel Yosef ben Avraham and Reuven Chaim ben Pala Parel, and also for a Atzlacha Rabbah for Alex ben Noach, Joshua ben Noach, Oshri ben Doris, Gabi ben Doris, Elad ben Doris, David ben Esriya, Yitro ben Avraham, Shaul ben Farzane, Marsha bat Julie, Ayla bat Marsha, Samuel ben Marsha, Cephas ben Marsha, Alexander ben Marsha, and all of Am Yisrael and all of the righteous Noahides that are helping us doing what we're trying to do to help the world see the light, see the Kedusha of the Torah, see that the only good way that exists in this world is the Torah way, and to really try to bring light to the nations, which obviously starts with Am Yisrael and spreads to the rest of the nations. Now, for anyone who watched last night's shiur, we began the shiur talking about the issue that's happening with Asher Meza and his rabbi Kolkowski, and also his employee Moshe Otero, how they're spreading a lot of rumors and nonsense, and we've offered them lots of money as a bounty to at least provide some type of evidence for all of these rumors they continue to spread.
There's I believe 3 families he converted here in South Florida that at the end of the day couldn't afford the conversion, and he refused to give them the certificates.
Who's he? Who's he? The Beit Din or Yaron?
Yaron.
Okay.
So
Now,
this you know for a fact? You
no.
spoke to them?
No, okay. Well, yes, people told me about the story. You know.
Wait, so Yaron gives the certificate? I thought the Beit Din the.
I don't know the insides of the story. You know, so I'm just telling you what I heard from reputable people. That's it. Now, on that basis, by the simple fact that I'm not saying it's a fact, I'm just telling you that this is what I heard.
My issue with you is not so much the conversion amount of money you charge or you make out of them, be it $1,000 or $2,000, and even if you hold their certificate of conversion to extended periods of 2 to 3 years to make sure they don't leave your shul. We know that trick as well, but that's not the point. I'm glad you're involved in conversion and you're helping bring more Jews that are out there in, even though at a very hefty amount. Now, I'm sure people out there who have gone through your program will probably speak up, and I welcome people to let people know, let the truth be known, because I'm all about let the truth be known, not this this gimmick of I'll give you $400,000 if you can bring up and show a check. Come on, Yaron. We know how the conversion business is all about and how it works. My gosh, I used to work with Rabbi Learfield. I know how it's done. I know how rabbis like yourself will come and speak to the Beit Din and get the kickbacks and get all of the goodies under the hand, as it were, and then say, oh, I'm not making any money. Come on, I know the tricks, I know the trade, I know what you've gone through, and this is why I have gone and said, you know what, we've got to help the Gerim without making a penny. Now, good for you. You may have a big donor, someone that's underwriting these conversions. And if that's the case, that should go to you. But I still get calls from people complaining of the 10,000 levels, of the $2,000 level. You know, there's different levels. You're willing to negotiate. You're like a used car salesman. I can't get 10,000, I'll get 5,000. Can't get 5,000, I'll get 2,000. Can't get 2,000, give me $1,000. And I'll prolong your conversion and I'll hold to the papers. Now tell me you didn't do that.
When I just stated information that I was told by many other people that his program charges at least $10,000 per person. Whether he keeps the money or the court does, I don't care. But for this, the sensitive little giant is going to get all his feathers ruffled, right? And that number is nothing new. 10,000 is the going rate for most of these online rabbis. And yes, local courts, when you live in a community, would charge you perhaps up to $2,000. But for this online program or these type of online programs, this is the standard, 10,000.
And of course, they haven't provided any evidence. All they do is just add more rumors. Today, he came out with another video saying that now he has some Chabad rabbi who told him the story about how I withheld the conversion papers from 3 different families that I converted here in Florida. I'm more than happy to see the evidence and write the check, because I know it doesn't exist. And the 2 simple proofs is number one, I don't do such things. I don't charge for conversion. As I said 50 times already, that the Bet Din charges, and apparently Asher doesn't know how to read, because we've already made 2, 3, 4 clips about this, and we put on the screen that the Bet Dins that we've used throughout all of the years have never charged more than $2,000. So I'm not really understanding why he just doesn't seem to get that point. He still insists on $10,000, and he insists it's even me getting the money, or now he changed that even if I don't get the money and I just get a kickback, but it's still $10,000.
It's at least $10,000. 10,000.
The 10,000 levels.
10,000.
10,000.
$10,000.
$10,000.
10,000 to $20,000.
$10,000.
$10,000.
We've again provided this information over and over again, but the reason I mention it today again is because one of the things that we added to the video after last night's lecture, the live feed, we added the YouTube feed and the one that's on our app, Bezat Hashem, and in there we add different footage, which the footage was of these people talking, without anyone telling them what to say. These people talking about themselves, and anyone that watched that video, may actually have gotten a heart attack when they saw that the rabbi of Asher Meza is a Mechalel Shabbat, is a person that and also Mechalel Shem Hashem. He openly and obnoxiously admits that he watches television on Shabbat, and if that's not enough, he takes his family to completely forbidden events on Shabbat to go watch movies at some event, at some festival or something of movies, scary movies, and he does this on Shabbat.
Good evening, everybody. I'm on my way home from Monster Bash Under the Stars, which was in Vandergrift, Pennsylvania. We enjoyed ourselves, had a nice Shabbos, daven. I wore my Streimel and my Bekisha there at the campsite most of the day until it got too hot. Changed back into a t-shirt, but kept my Shabbos pants on, and took a nap and enjoyed, and we walked around a little bit in the drive-in talking to people who were also camped out there enjoying themselves at the Monster Bash program, including what we showed on the video, Chris Yeworth, and we talked about the blob, and we had some lawn chairs and a little table, and we sat and we had kiddush, and we brought some amazing meals, so we were able to have cholent and kugel.
So not only are they going to watch television on Shabbat or a big screen on Shabbat, which is obviously forbidden for Jews, but aside from that, if that's not bad enough, he even says he knows it's wrong, but he does it anyway because he thinks it's okay, and it's wrong, but it's okay. And if that's not bad enough, he does it with his Streimel on.
So, maybe it's not the right thing to do. But I'm not, and the truth is, I didn't wear white socks. I got Pepperhosen that are long and was wearing Crocs, but still with a Strammel in the Bekisha, one of the light Bekishes.
With his Streimel and the Hasidic garb, meaning that it's not only a Chilul Shabbat, of the Oneg of Shabbat, but aside from that, it's Chilul Hashem. It's desecration of Hashem's name. Now, and this is the rabbi of Asher Meza. Of course, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Although I don't remember ever hearing Asher Meza saying that he watches movies on Shabbat, I do know that he did say in the past that he watches movies and all types of other things that are forbidden for kosher Jews. But nonetheless, this is really interesting. Why is this really interesting? The question is, how does a rabbi go off the derech?
I'll admit that I'm a Russia, and I have a lot of problems in my life. So, but to say I'm not a rabbi, I don't know. I mean, rabbi is an English word. You want to say I'm not a rebbe, I'm not a ruv, I'm not a rabbi. Conservative reform, you can also spell Reish Aleph Beis Yud. I'm at least like them. I work as a rabbi. That's what I do professionally.
How does a rabbi go off the derech? Because of course the Klukowski admits that his Rosh Yeshiva many years ago told him it's forbidden to watch television on Shabbat. I mean, quite frankly, the Steipler Gaon said that television is avodah zarah. So watching any of these movies, even during the week, is forbidden. It's a kal vachomer. But anyway, the question is, how does a rabbi, and we're not talking about a person that used to be a rabbi, this is apparently a person that has a keilah, has a community somewhere in one of the chambers of Gehenom, and he has a keilah, and he desecrates Shabbat regularly, like without really feeling too upset about it. In fact, publicizing it. And if that's not bad enough, he says that he believes that I also violate Shabbat and watch television on Shabbat, and Reb Mizrahi somehow got into this conversation, and he also watches television on Shabbat according to Klukowski, because he figures that if he is surrounding himself and practically swimming in tumah and filth, everybody else must be doing it also.
I admit, like my Rosh Yeshiva always says, "Chatoini Masker Yom." It's not the right thing to do, to sit and watch a movie on Shabbos. But sof kol sof, I wasn't manipulating the projector. I was there. So there's two ways to look at it. Yes, either Katina Zaya Groisa Afla, because kicked off a movie. You think, to be honest, you think Yossi Mizrahi doesn't watch movies on Shabbos? You don't think he leaves the TV on? I can tell you worse things about Yossi Mizrahi, but it's none of your business. You think Yaron Reuven doesn't leave the TV on before Shabbos? I'm sure he does. He probably has a room somewhere, he leaves it on. The difference is I'm honest about it, and I'm not trying to hide who I am.
So again, spreading more rumors and all types of nonsense. I mean, obviously we don't watch TV at all. Needless to say, we don't watch TV on Shabbat. But the point being is, how does a rabbi, you have three in this case, technically. You have Klukowski, okay, watching television on Shabbat regularly, going and taking his, so-called frum family to movie events and the likes on Shabbat, and actually publicizing it, telling people that he's doing it, even though he knows it's wrong. And this was a clip that we had, several clips we had in last night's video. If you just simply watch those, and we'll add it to tonight also. He is doing that. On top of it, he's spreading false rumors, and of course his Talmid, or two Talmidim, Meza and the other garbage pail kid, Otero, they also feel very confident about spreading false rumors and creating stories and things of that nature. The question is here, Rabotai, how does such a thing happen? Because surely when these people, started becoming religious, Asher converted to Judaism, and if you look at his old videos, he has peyot, and he looks quite a bit different, he talks quite a bit different. Things have changed over the years for Asher. It's quite sad to see the steady decline that has happened over the years for Asher. Otero, I don't know very much about, other than the fact that it seems like he is a little bit senile and doesn't know how to read. But aside from that, I don't really know very much about him. But the point is that I'm sure that Otero used to be more religious, perhaps when he was younger. I'm not sure if he's a convert or a Baal Tshuva, or he was always from. It doesn't really make much of a difference, but I'm almost certain that at some point he was more religious. And I'm absolutely certain that Klokowski, when he went to yeshiva, he was at least, portraying a more religious person. He says he's the one that gave smicha to Asher Meza, even though his smicha, he says himself, his smicha is worthless. That's a very interesting thing. You give somebody something that's worthless, so why did you give it to them?
The smicha that I gave to my friend Rabbi Asher Meza, and I appreciate that Reb Mordechai here calls him Rabbi on that account. I want to note one thing first. Rabbi Meza had smicha before he knew me. Why would I give smicha? My smicha, it really isn't worth anything. I'll be honest. I'm just a regular guy. Happen to be a rabbi in a shul, had smicha, whatever. My smicha really isn't worth that much. You're not going to be able to join the RCA with my smicha. You're probably not going to get a patur from the Israeli army if you make aliyah.
Anyway, my point is that how does the group here, the group here that makes up rumors, at least one of them, the leader among them, as far as, let's say, the Tolan Pol here, or this, the guy that gave them the smicha, desecrates Shabbat, desecrates Hashem's name, walks around with Hasidish garb, while he's pretty much doing all of this. How does that happen? How does somebody fall off so bad? It's really a sad story. To be honest with you, it's just a sad reality. And the question is, how does such a thing happen? And I have a theory. That has, obviously, it's based on Da'at Torah, and that's what we'll talk about a little bit today, because quite frankly, we've seen certain things like this in the Torah. We've seen stories in the Gemara where people completely go off. If you're looking at the Gemara, you have Elisha ben Avuya, which was one of the rabbis of Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes. He was so holy at some point that he was one of the 4 people that was privy to see something called the Pardes. This is part of the mystical teachings of the Gemara, where it was 4 tzaddikim, one of them being Elisha ben Avuya, were able to see something called the Pardes, and he got confused, to say the least, after he saw it, and became a heretic after it, desecrating Shabbat, desecrating Hashem's name, and committing a lot of different crimes. While Rabbi Akiva, for example, who also saw the Pardes, actually became better for it. So we see that holiness affects different people different ways if it's not addressed or dealt with the right way. But we've seen Elisha ben Avuya went off the derech. Bottom line, we also have a Kohen Gadol. A Kohen Gadol that went off the derech after being a Kohen for decades. So he went off the derech and became a complete apikoros. And the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says this is one of the examples we use, that a person should never trust themselves until the day they die. Meaning you should always do tshuva, you should always work on yourself, you should always do what needs to be done as if it's you're a brand new Baal tshuva, as if you're literally meeting Hashem for the first time and you're excited. So we've seen someone that was not only religious, was the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol, and he goes off the derech. So we've seen that. We've also seen the entire nation. The entire nation of Israel, obviously, is quite a few times in the Torah. We see disaster after disaster happen to Am Yisrael, and this is the very same nation that is called Dor HaDe'ah, the generation of knowledge, the generation that saw the words of Hashem and not just heard them, the generation that saw the Hashem open up the 7 heavens and show them that He is the only one, that there is no other God. That each one of them, had prophecy that is even greater than the prophecy of Ezekiel. So, and some even obviously greater, like Moshe Rabbeinu, the prophet of all prophets. But even the lowliest among them had prophecy higher than Ezekiel. So I mean, you see this very same generation that we can't even comprehend how holy they were. They reached the highest level of holiness in the history of Am Yisrael, the 49th level of holiness. It's literally near perfection. They received the Torah. They saw miracles that is beyond our comprehension. They were extraordinarily holy, but yet you see a week. While Moshe Rabbeinu is out Mount Sinai, they have a part of them go and worship the idol, the golden calf. Then you see after this whole disaster is dealt with, Moshe Rabbeinu kills a few thousand people and gets the Torah all over again. You see a week later, you have Tzlofchad, the first Mechalel Shabbat in history, desecrate Shabbat. Then you have obviously Korach and Adato. And then you also have what we're going to be reading next week, which is Parashat Balak. And Parashat Balak, we see something extraordinary where the entire nation, this holy nation, this nation that just received the Torah, this nation that is Kodesh Kodeshim, the Pasuk says in chapter 25 of Parashat Balak, the book of Numbers, Vayeshev Yisrael Bashitim, Vayachel Ha'am Liznot et Bnot Moav. Israel settled in the Shittim, and the people began to commit harlotry with the daughters of Moab. It's like saying, you have a Chafetz Chaim, a Rav Ovadia, a Rav Eliashib, a Rabbi Akiva, a Rabbi Meir Baranes, and these tzaddikim, they went to some prostitution house. Is anybody really going to believe such a thing if you heard a story? No, obviously. These are holy people. They don't have such lives. But here we have the generation of knowledge fall to a horrible level. We're not talking about, one time the guy messed up, he, carried on Shabbat out of the Ruv or something, or he touched Muktzeh, or even if you watch TV on Shabbos. We're talking about they went and they started worshiping idols in order to commit harlotry with the non-Jewish women of Moab. I mean, it simply doesn't get much worse than this. How does such a thing happen? How do three rabbis here making videos and apparently are, telling the world that they're teaching them something that's of value, teaching them to become Jews, teaching them to, it seems more like they're teaching them to become Christians, but at least they portray themselves as if they're teaching Torah and they're teaching good things. And how does that happen, that you just go off completely? Well, let's see. The Sefer Torat Moshe, which is a commentary on the Torah by the Khatam Sofer. He comments on this pasuk in Parashat Balak. And he says, this verse is very interesting. While you have Am Yisrael go from their lofty, holy level to making just a disaster of disasters, idol worship, then immorality, being intimate with non-Jews. I mean, it's just a disaster. But after that, there's a very good thing that happened, which is that Hashem, stops the plague of killing pretty much. He simply decided to kill all of Am Yisrael. He gave a plague, he put a plague into the world that literally started killing Am Yisrael like flies. And then Pinchas, who becomes Eliyahu Hanavi, he goes and he kills the biggest desecrator of Hashem's name, a person by the name of Zimri, the head of the Shimon tribe, and also the filthy woman that was with him, Cosby. He kills them while they're in the act and shows it to all of the people. And Hashem says, because he was zealous for my sake, he took the vengeance in my name. he saved all of Am Yisrael, because if it wasn't for Pinchas, Hashem would have Chas v'Shalom destroyed all of Am Yisrael. So here we have Hashem sees a disaster, simply without any warning decides to destroy Am Yisrael, and then Baruch Hashem we have a Pinchas saved the day, saved practically eternity for all of Am Yisrael. And for that, he gets blessed. In the next parasha, Parashat Pinchas, he gets the blessing to live forever. He gets the blessing of becoming Kohen Gadol, which is something that he wasn't before. It was really something that you could only get if you were a direct descendant, or really a direct son of Aaron Kohen, which he was a grandson, not a son. So anyway, he becomes a Kohen Gadol. He becomes a person that's going to live forever, never dies. He gets these great blessings. He gets verses in the Torah mentioned after him. And he becomes the ultimate example of zealousness for eternity. So that's good. But what happened before is terrible. What happened before is terrible. How do we get from really, really good? We got the Torah. We're amazing. Hashem loves us. Hashem adores us. Hashem created the whole world for us. Gives us His Torah. We go crazy, worship idols, and do the worst possible crime in the eyes of Hashem, which is immorality. A Jew with a non-Jew in the eyes of a Kadosh Baruch Hu is one of the worst possible things that can exist in the world. Whether it's a Jewish man with a non-Jewish woman, or a Jewish woman with a non-Jewish man, either way it's viewed as something that a Kadosh Baruch Hu hates. And it's a disaster. So now, how do we go from great, disaster, great again? Or, great again, I guess. So, in essence, we started doing good. We did tshuva. Went off the derech. Like these three people, Meza, Kulkowski, Otero, and whoever's like them. And then do tshuva, Bezrat Hashem, right? How do we get there? How did that happen here? How did that happen? We have to diagnose the problem here, Rabotai. So the Khatam Sofer says the following. If you noticed, the verse says, Vayeshev Yisrael bashitim, Vayachel ha'am liznot el bnot Moav. It says that Israel settled in the Shittim, and the people began to commit harlotry. And the question is, in the beginning of the verse it says, Israel settled in the Shittim, and then it says the people began to commit harlotry. Why is the same verse mentioning the people twice? I mean, shouldn't it say Israel settled in the Shittim and they began to commit harlotry? Why did it say the people? It mentions, Am Yisrael twice. So the Khatam Sofer says that's because there are Am Yisrael has two statuses. When they are holy, when they're following the Torah, when they're doing what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, they're Am Yisrael. They're the holy of holy. They're the chosen people. They're the greatest of great, and simply the world exists for their sake. When they're not, they're Am. They're just among the people. They're Am. They're not doing so good. They're not doing so good. But they're not necessarily doing the worst yet. They're before they sinned. They're simply They're just not in the highest level. What is it like? We have, the Khatam Sofer says, we have Israel, which is the Talmidei Chachamim, the Torah scholars, the people that devote themselves to Torah, the people that devote themselves to mitzvot. They toil in Torah, they teach Torah, they learn Torah non-stop, and they simply make Torah priority number one in their life. That's Israel. But then you have also the Am. The Am is the nation, which are people that are not necessarily desecrating Shabbat or going against the Torah, but they're not devoting their life to the Torah per se, and really they're more vulnerable to fall. Why? Because the less you toil for Torah, the more likely that you are going to fall to sins. Because if you invest a lot of time and effort into anything, you're going to be a lot more committed to it. If you built your own house with your own hands, it's less likely that you're going to sell that house. Why? Because you've worked it's not just you paid for it, you've worked to build it. It's become like a part of you. So the more you work on something, the more you toil into something, the more you appreciate it, the more you protect it. If a person toils in Torah, he's going to protect that Torah, even if there's certain things that are difficult in life and there's certain things that they don't understand. Needless to say, they go and they dedicate their life. But the people that are not necessarily dedicating their life to the Torah, they're much more vulnerable. They're much more vulnerable to different outside influences, if you will. So you see here that you have the highest level, Israel, and then you have the Am. So the Khatam Sofer says, how did the Am Yisrael then go to become, you have the Am, but then, right after that, immorality, intermarriage, nightmare. He says, notice what's between them. What were Israel doing before they committed harlotry? They were at the Shittim. What is the Shittim? Khatam Sofer says, Shtuyot, nonsense. The leaders of Am Yisrael, the ones that were the most lofty, the rabbis, if you will, the ones that were supposed to be the Torah scholars, instead of toiling in Torah, they started watching movies. They started going to movie events on Shabbat or during the week. They started playing sports. They started playing with guns. They started riding motorcycles. They started doing shtuyot, nonsense. Things that the average person does, the average non-scholar does. Now, when the non-scholar does it, a person that's an average person does it, it's obviously not good, but it's not as much of a disaster as when the scholar is doing it. Why? Rabbi Yisrael Misalant says, when a Bachur Yeshiva decides to simply not learn because he wants to go play basketball, he wants to go read some secular book, he wants to just go hang out, he doesn't want to learn. That loss of Kedusha in the world will cause some professor or some other weaker type of person in Am Yisrael to go and convert to Christianity or desecrate Hashem's name. Why? There's a certain amount of Kedusha that's required in the world, and is an even bigger responsibility on the people that are already in it, the Bachurim and the Yeshiva, the Avrichim, the rabbis, the people that are already in it. So when the Israel stopped behaving like Israel and started going and doing shtuyot at the Shittim, they started watching movies, riding motorcycles, playing with guns, doing all types of nonsensical things, surely it affected the Am that was already vulnerable to begin with, and now the Am falls, the Khatam Sofer says, to Znut. They fall to the Goyot, they fall to all the filth of the world, and simply destroy everything that they built until that point. Where you see, the fish stinks from the top. You see that any time you have weakness in the people, it starts with the leaders. No questions asked. It starts with the leaders. Weak leadership creates weak followers. In every aspect, whether it's in business, and needless to say, whether it's in the Torah world. When you have weak leaders, they're going to breed weak followings, weak students. And obviously we see here, it makes a lot of sense why Asher Meza is distorting the Torah on a regular basis, wherein his rabbi is desecrating the oneg of Shabbat, is desecrating Hashem's name, walking around with Hasidish garb while going to non-Jewish events on Shabbat. And I would only imagine probably in other times as well. This is not a one-time event, since he himself says that he goes to this event and events like it every year. So, and obviously the same applies for the other one, Otero. So you see here that when the leader is weak, it creates obviously a disaster. And of course, that's why it explains that the Talmidim, the students of Meza, feel perfectly comfortable to put pornography on his videos, on his live videos. Many people have complained, and on his comments you'll see it, unless he deleted it already. You see people complaining, please stop these guys from masturbating on the video. like you see a rabbi have students actually perform the most vile acts while it's in essence supposed to be a Torah shiur. And then, if that's not bad enough, the guys that are actually also there saying, listen, why does it only have to be guys? Ribono shel olam! What happened to you? Do you have nothing? No yirat shamayim whatsoever? No remorse for the Torah at all? No respect? No self-respect? Nothing? You can say, no, I didn't do it, somebody else did it. Yeah, but this is the fruits of your labor. This is the fruits of your labor. Ribono shel olam, if I had students like this, I think I'd commit suicide. What happened to you people? But that's what's happening, Rabotai. When the teachers are weak, the students get weaker, and that's the degradation of the generations. Shown right in front of us without even having to wait another 30 or 40 years. So you see, Rabotai, that when the leaders are dealing with shtuyot, that's what happens. That's what happens. And now, we have to see, what is the Torah require of us? Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Baal Shulchan Aruch, he, aside from writing the famous Shulchan Aruch that all of Klal Yisrael follows, there's also a Bet Yosef, there's also a Magid Mesharim, there's other books that by the Shulchan Aruch, by the Rabbi Yosef Karo. In the Magid Mesharim, these are the conversations that Rabbi Yosef Karo had with his private angel. He had an angel that was teaching him Torah. Now this angel doesn't sugarcoat anything, I can tell you that. In Parashat Beshalach, the angel tells, this is the angel of the Mishnah. The angel of the Mishnah, every creation in essence has an angel. This Rabbi Yosef Karo was so holy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him the angel, and the angel was teaching him Torah. In Parashat Beshalach, this is Rabbi Yosef Karo. This is not Yaron Reuven. This is not some mystical person that some people don't care for. Everyone accepts Rabbi Yosef Karo. And everyone accepts the Magid Mesharim as a legitimate book from Rabbi Yosef Karo. This is like his personal journal. It's not like, oh yeah, maybe. No, this is not even Kabbalah. This is simply anyone that complies with Jewish rules, with the Shulchan Aruch, this is the author. It's not like some fairy tale somebody wrote and maybe this is it. And you have here conversation, a little small tidbit of it. Rabbi Yosef Karo, conversation with the angel, and the angel says the following to him. Always focus your heart, meaning the angel is telling Rabbi Yosef Karo, always focus your heart at all times, every hour, every moment, so that you do not think of anything except myself, my Torah, and serving me. In essence, he is talking for Hashem, which is the secret of Achdut, unity. Unity, not unity like everybody kumbaya likes each other. Unity of Hashem's name. That's why when you say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, you're supposed to extend Echad. The more you extend that the more blessing you get. This is the Achdut of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's a special significance of it. Nonetheless, so the angel is saying, which is the secret of unity, of Achdut, of man actually uniting himself with his Creator. For the living soul attaches itself and unites with the Blessed One, and his physical body and organs become the camp of the Shekhinah. A person can sanctify themselves with their thoughts of how much they think about Torah and mitzvot and serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the point where HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses their organs as a place to put a Shekhinah. You become literally like a living Bet HaMikdash. Then he continues, this is what is meant by the verse in Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 20. The Lord your God you shall fear, you shall serve him, and you shall attach yourself to him. At present you are uniting with him by means of your mouth, but not with your heart. Whenever you separate your thoughts from the fear of God, from his Torah, and from his serving him, you are in effect nullifying the unity of Hashem. So here we see that the expectation that he had of Rabbi Yosef Karo, obviously also us, but we're not at his level, but needless to say, this is the expectation here, to think about Hashem at all times. But what think about Hashem? Oh, I love Hashem, hopefully he's going to give me a new BMW. Oh, I love Hashem, hopefully I get new customers. What? No, fear of the Almighty, he says. Fear of the Almighty, for his Torah, serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's what you're supposed to be thinking about at all times. And when a person doesn't, in essence, they are breaking up the unity of Hashem. They're in essence doing the opposite of what they're really supposed to be doing. So here we see the expectation of how much a person is supposed to fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu, think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu at all times. And then in Parashat Miketz, in Nagid Nesharim, the angel says to Rabbi Yosef Karo, the reason the miracles and wonders were performed in the past for the previous sages was that the thoughts of those involved were constantly attached to me, my Torah, and fear of me, without wandering away for even one moment. Hence they rose and became attached to the upper traits. So when they cast their eyes upon the guilty person, that person became a heap of bones. Here, the Magid, the angel, tells Rabbi Yosef Karo, you know the stories where you read in the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, I believe it's page 32, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai sees the person that caused all the trouble for the Romans to find out that he said things against them. And this was actually a convert, a problematic convert. And he looks at this guy after he suffered so much, even though he got the Torah, but he suffered a lot from all that happened to him. So he looks at this guy and he says, you're still alive? And the guy turns into a heap of bones. Literally dies on the spot. So not from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai killing him or with his hands, with a sword. Just simply, he looks at him. He says, you're still alive. And in Shamayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reviews the thoughts of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and he sees that he's upset that this person's still alive. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're upset that he's alive? Okay, that's it, he's not alive anymore. I'm sorry, Rabbi Shimon. You're my soldier. You're upset that he's alive? That's it, he's not alive anymore. Finished. He's not alive anymore. Things like this happen on a regular basis for some of these tzaddikim you read in the Gemara on a regular basis. Not like parables or fairy tales. It happened. It happened to them. You also see it in the Tanakh. You see it in the Tanakh itself. You see the prophet Elisha. Prophet Elisha, you have the story of the dry bones. There's people that were there dead for hundreds of years. For hundreds of years, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu resurrects all of them right there and then. Right there and then. Or one time you have, after Elisha Navi dies and they put his body in the grave and there was already somebody there, the second that his dead body, in essence, touched another dead body, the one that was dead came back to life. That's how holy Elisha was, the prophet Elisha was. So these types of things are standard in the Torah, in the Gemara, and so on. And the Magid says, why did this happen? Why are these people they get so miracles, and the average person today can't even spell the word miracle? How come? He says, because they did what I told you. What does I tell you? To think of me, to think of my Torah, to think of fear of me, without wavering for even a single moment. At all times, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Akiva, all of these giants, at all times they thought about Hashem. At all times. When I first heard this years ago from my Rav, that the tzaddikim literally think about Hashem at every single second of the day, I just couldn't comprehend it. How is that possible to think about Hashem all the time? I understand thinking about Hashem when you're praying, hopefully at least. I understand thinking about Hashem when you're studying. I understand thinking about Hashem when you're doing a mitzvah, you're active in a mitzvah. But to think about Him all the time? Like you just woke up, you're thinking about them, you're going to eat a little on a wafer or something, you're thinking about them, you're drinking water, you're thinking about them, you're doing your work in some business that you have, you're thinking about them, you have a customer, you're thinking about them, you're with your wife, you're thinking about him. Yes. Yes, Rabotai, yes, it's all 100% possible. When I first heard this, I thought this is imaginary. But it's 100% possible. And if a person could really, really do it, to the extent the Magid says that's how you can see a person literally become a walking miracle. So on one end, you have Am Yisrael that was thinking about Hashem and got to the highest possible level, resurrecting the dead, killing the living that were wicked and didn't have a right to exist. You see that. On the other end, you sometimes see the very same people fall down to the lowliest level possible. Where you see Am Yisrael in Parashat Balak, Parashat Korach, and other places go and completely make a mockery of everything. And Khatam Sofer has already told us that this has to do with the leadership. With the leadership. The leaders started doing shtuyot. Obviously, we're not talking about the leader being Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was Kodesh Kodeshim, never did a shtuyot in his life. But the others, obviously, there were sub-leaders. The local rabbis, when they start acting like the regular commoners, the regular people, this affects people in a very, very negative way. Now, the question is, who is the rabbi? Of course, everybody can say, yeah, my rabbi is Rav Ovadia. Thank you very much, but who's your rabbi that is your Rav Muvak? Your rabbi that's going to direct you, you're going to teach you, and so on. Well, why do I need that? Everybody needs to have a rabbi. As the Mishnah in Avot says, Aseh lecharav. Make yourself a rabbi. Now, the Gemara in Masechet Bava Metzia, page 33a, has a Mishnah in the Gemara on the subject. It says that all issues of rabbi and student there's a lot of halachas, there's a lot of laws that people really need to learn about this particular topic. You could find in Hilchot Talmud Torah of the Rambam in chapter 5, or also in the Shulchan Aruch, in Yoreh De'ah, chapter 242, and in other places as well. But nonetheless, there's a lot of halachot in regards to the relationship between a rabbi and his student. And here the Gemara says that one of the things that a person needs to know, that if they lose something, and their father loses something. They lose something, and their father loses something. They're going to go look for something. They can make their own possession the priority over their father's. But if they can find both, good. But if there has to be a priority, then they have to go. They can choose themselves first. They don't have to choose their fathers. On the other hand, if let's say two people lost something, or two people need help, both their father and their rabbi, they have to help their rabbi before they help their father. They have to help the rabbi before the father, unless their father is a scholar, unless their father is a Talmid Chacham. And then they can help their father first. Even if it comes to, they're both prisoners. They're both captive prisoners. The Reshaim captivated both their father and their rabbi. If their father is a regular person, he's not a scholar, they free their father, and there has to be a choice, they have to make a choice, they have to save their rabbi first. But if their father is a scholar, then they have to save their father first. Here we see that the rabbi is an extraordinary position, to the extent that we see here, you have the 10 Commandments, that you have to honor your father and your mother, right? But that is the basic understanding. Chachamim tell us, yes, you have to honor your father and your mother. We're not saying to dishonor them, but if you are going to look at all of the little details that come with this commandment, you'll see that Hashem's honor comes first, and part of the honor of Hashem is to honor your rabbi. The question is, who is your rabbi? So the Chachamim say, there's a debate between the Chachamim, and this is what they say. The rabbis were talking, and Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes says, your rabbi is the person that taught you chokhmah, wisdom. What's wisdom? Talmud, Gemara. Gemara, whoever teaches you Gemara, that's your rabbi. That's the first opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it's not someone that taught you chokhmah, but rather the person that taught you most of your wisdom. So let's say, for example, you have several rabbis that you learn from. You watch videos of Rabbi A, you watch videos of Rabbi B, and you go to a shiur of Rabbi C. You learn from 3 different rabbis. Now, out of the total of wisdom that you have, that you've acquired from learning from these rabbis, surely one of them is has given you the majority. Has given you the majority. So let's say if you have 3 rabbis, one rabbi that you learned the most from gave you, let's say, 50% of your wisdom, and the other 2 are, let's say, split evenly 25 and 25. And therefore, that rabbi that you learned the most from, Rabbi Yehuda says, that's your rabbi. That's your rabbi. And Rabbi Yossi says, no, anyone that teaches you anything that you didn't know, even a single Mishnah, that's already somebody that you should give him honor like he's your rabbi. What's the actual halacha? The Rambam, in Ilchot Gzela ve'Aveda, chapter 12, verse halacha number 2, and also in Ilchot Talmud Torah, chapter 5, halacha number 9, and also the Shulchan Aruch, Choshen Mishpat, Siman 264 too, and as well as the Yoreh De'ah, Siman 242, halacha number 30. All say halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rov Chochmato, the rabbi that taught you most of your wisdom, that's your rabbi, that's your Rav Muv'ak. Now there are some Chachamim who say, no, maybe there isn't really any more Rav Muv'ak because you could really learn a lot from books, but really today I think there's the Rav Muv'ak is more applicable than ever because most people in our nation today learn most of what they know from videos and audio and things of that nature rather than learning from books. That's just the reality of things. So the point being is that the person that you are learning the most from, that is your rabbi. That is your rabbi, which means that if your father and your rabbi were both prisoners, you have to save your rabbi before your father, unless your father is also a rabbi, Talmid Chacham, and so on. So now, this already shows what our Torah, what our sages are teaching, the significance of a rabbi. Significance of a rabbi is obviously up there. What about the significance of a Talmid? The student himself is the student. Is the student, does he deserve respect? Where the rabbi has to say, please come to the shiur. Please, if you don't want me to teach this, I won't say it anymore. If you get offended by what I say, I won't do it. What happens? The same Gemara, Bava Metzia, gives a story. Story of a rabbi and a Talmid. But not just any rabbi and Talmid. 2 of the greatest people in their generation. Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Rav Huna was Rav Chisda's rabbi. Rav Huna was the rabbi. And the Gemara says, Rav Chisda inquired of his rabbi, Rav Huna, that if a student that's a special type of student, he's not just your average student that just takes everything on a silver platter, but rather he's like one of these students that's really clever, really smart, serious scholar, where the rabbi can give him a shiur for 30 minutes and the student extrapolates it into a 4-hour shiur. He's not just any type of student. He's a student that is what you call a student that's needed, where the rabbi benefits from that student also. So if Rav Chisda asked his rabbi, Rav Huna, if a student whom his teacher needs, what is the law if the student comes across his father's object and his teacher's object? Should he still retrieve the father's object or the teacher's object? Meaning that we all know the halacha is that if you have the rabbi lost something, or the rabbi is captivated, and also the father is captivated, that the student has to free or help the rabbi first before the father. Unless the father is a scholar, which is that exception. Everything else, every other circumstance, they have to help the rabbi first. The rabbi takes priority over the parents. So now, Rav Chisda, Talmid Chacham, is asked a clever question. He says, yeah, but what if the rabbi needs the student too? Should he still be considered his Rav Muvhak, is really his rabbi? Because, technically, this is a special student. So really smart guy, contributes a lot, and so on and so forth. Rav Chisda misunderstood what his student was saying, thinking that Rav Huna, his Talmid, is in essence talking about himself, because he himself was a really big tzaddik and a chacham and contributed a lot and was clever, and so he was really what he's talking about. So Rav Huna thought he's talking about himself. And Rav Chisda said, Chisda, לא צריכה נעלך, את צריכת לי עד 40 שנים. He says, Chisda, I don't need you. You need me for 40 years, you need me. Here we see the Rav reply in such a way that caused a tension between them until they both calmed down and realized they both made a mistake. Rav Huna realized that his student Chisda, he didn't mean that he's the one that should be treated differently, that in essence what he was trying to say is, you're not really my rabbi, I'm already at your same level. He wasn't saying that. He was just asking a question to toil in Torah. And he fasted for 40 days. Rav Huna fasted for 40 days for misunderstanding a student. The student, Rav Chisda, also fasted for 40 days because he asked a question inappropriately to his rabbi and offended his rabbi. But then it says Rav Chisda fasted 40 days because he caused Rav Huna to feel dejected, and likewise Rav Huna fasted 40 days because he had unjustly suspected Rav Chisda of acting insolently, and then they came back to learning together. But what do you see here though? Rav Ephraim, my dear Rav, says, look at the lesson here. What's the lesson here about this whole fight? What's the lesson here? The rabbi is a giant. The Talmid is a giant. They misunderstood each other. But there's a lesson here. Why is the Gemara putting it here? What do we need to know that they disagree? Today, somebody doesn't like what you say in the shiur. Oh no, he's not my rabbi anymore. He's Erev Rav. He's the worst. So here we see, they misunderstood each other. They suffered for it. They did tshuva for it. But what happened in the end? Rav Chisda, Rav Huna, the teacher, the rabbi, didn't change his mind. Meaning that, I misunderstood you. That I thought that you're thinking that you're talking about yourself, but that doesn't change the answer. Meaning, Chisda, you need me. Chisda, you need me. For 40 years you need me. That's not I didn't answer that way because of what you were asking. That's still the answer. You're the student and you will always need me. For 40 years you're going to need me. Where does 40 years come from? The Gemara in Masechet Megillah says, a person that has a Rav has to understand that he's going to need that Rav. He's going to need that Rav more than he needs air. Why? It's going to take you 40 years to truly understand what your Rav is teaching you. Just like Am Yisrael only understood the value of Moshe Rabbeinu after he died. Meaning, he was already their rabbi for 40 years, but they only began to understand how amazing he was after 40 years. So if Chisda, here it says, Chisda, you need me and you're going to need me for 40 years. So now we see that the attitude of the rabbis has to be such where they have to let the student know who's boss. Now, is this the way? Is this the way that works today? Obviously, in most places, it's not necessarily the way. Why? In most places, the rabbi is it could be a person that has a job that has a title rabbi, but the person that calls the shots is usually the one that has the most amount of money. As they say in Hebrew, Baal HaMe'ah, Baal HaDe'ah. The person that has ownership of the 100, meaning the $100 bills, he's also the one that has the owner of the opinion of what to do. So unfortunately, in many places, you see that the people that run the show are the board of directors or some big donor or a combination thereof. And this is unfortunately one of the disasters that's happening. And the Chida said a few hundred years ago that the Torah lost its honor when rabbis started taking money from rich people and in essence gave them control of the shul as a result. And this happens, but it didn't always happen, and it doesn't happen everywhere. In fact, if you look at all of the successful communities, you will see quite the opposite of this. One of the great examples that I just learned today from my Rav, Rabbi Ephraim, is the story of Rav Chaim Kreisworth. Rav Chaim Kreisworth is one of the Gedolei Ador of the previous generation. He left this world about 20 years ago, and he was an extraordinary Talmid Chacham, one of the giants of the generation. Literally, the entire Torah was inside his brain. He knew the whole thing by heart. One time Rav Tzion Abba Shaul, also one of the Gedolei Ador, had one son. And so during his wedding, he invited all of the giant sages of the generation. He invited his Chavruta, Rav Ovadia, he invited Rav Kreisworth, invited all of the giant rabbis to celebrate his only son's wedding. So because there were so many big rabbis, important people, there was some delay to the wedding. So Rav Kreisworth goes to Rav Ovadia, which gave a lot of respect. They had a lot of mutual respect to each other, so much so that Rav Ovadia says he doesn't think if there's anybody else in the generation that's like Rav Kreisworth. It's something unique. And he says, while we're waiting, since we're at the wedding of Abba Shaul family, let's among us, between the two of us, count how many times the name Abba Shaul appears in the Gemara. Because there's one of the sages in the Gemara, his name is Abba Shaul. So let's go back and forth. You give me one source, I go the other, until we go to the entire Gemara. And Rav Ovadia starts, Rav Kreisworth next. In this Gemara, page this, Abba Shaul appears. Yeah, you're right. On page that one, he appears again. On page that one, he appears again. They go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Until Rav Kreisworth says to Rav Ovadia, hold on a second, for the Rab, I'm sorry, but you skipped one. You skipped one. He says, where I skipped one? He says, on that Gemara over there in such and such page. He says, Abba Shaul. Rav Ovadia says to him, no, Kvodo, Mechila. No, it's a mistake. Why? We're talking about Abba Shaul. The Abba Shaul that you're mentioning, if you look at the commentary by the Maharsha over there, one of the sages that's practically comments on every page of the Gemara, you see what the Maharsha comments, he says, this is not the same Abba Shaul that's all over the Gemara. This is an Abba Shaul ben Butnit. We're not at the wedding of ben Butnit, we're at the wedding of Abba Shaul. So there's two Abba Shauls in the Gemara. One time this other one appears. I didn't count him because we're talking about the other Abba Shaul. And this Rabotai, they go through the entire Shas by heart. One. We're not talking about they remember some halacha that was mentioned somewhere. Literally going from their neshama. I can't even say a brain. From their neshama, they go back and forth and tell you each and every single page in the Gemara that mentions the sage Abba Shaul. And this is, Rabotai, not long ago. We're not talking about this is at the generation of Moshe Rabbeinu. We're talking about 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Now, how did they run their keilah? Rav Kreisworth was asked to come to Antwerp, to Antwerpen in Belgium, to lead the community over there. And at the time, he came from Israel to America. And when he asked the Chazon Ish, one of the Gedolei Ador, Shelat Rav, he asked his rabbi, should I go to lead the community in Belgium? The Chazon Ish initially said no. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe also said no. He wanted him to stay in America. But the people in Belgium were saying, listen, we really need you. We need a giant to help us. Because there's more reform, there's more heresy in Belgium that they're looking to hire a weak Orthodox rabbi in order to turn Orthodoxy into reform. We need somebody strong like you. So, but he asked the rabbi, he asked the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish said no. He was, he was a little bit surprised the Chazon Ish said no, but he asked the rabbi, and that's what he did. One day he gets a message. Chazon Ish says, I changed my mind, go to Belgium. Go to Belgium. Now, he didn't ask him a second time. It's mamash, the Chazon Ish got some type of Ruach HaKodesh a few weeks before he died, and he gave out a lot of different instructions to different people all over the world of things that need to be done. And here, there was a question that came up years before, and he changed his mind. He said, go to Belgium, and he ended up, Kreiswitz went to Belgium, and he built a world of Torah in Belgium. A world of Torah, an entire community change, something out of this world. And Baruch Hashem, to this day, there's a lot of Torah over there. And they asked him, Kvod Harav, what's the secret to building such a strong community, full of Torah, buildings, yeshivot, chesed? What's the secret? He says, the secret is in the Gemara, Masechet Baba Metzia, page 33a. What is it? Chizda, I don't need you. Chizda, I don't need you. A Rav has to come to a community and tell his community, I'm here to help you, not you come help me. You're benefiting out of this. I don't need you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide me my sustenance. You're allowed to pay the Rav if you want. You can donate to the Rav. You can do all types of things. But the second you bought the Rav, he's not a Rav anymore. He's not a Rav anymore. He's not a Rav anymore. This is the same exact thing, Abotai, we see with Rav Tzion Levi. Rav Tzion Levi, Alav Shalom, was also same generation, one of the Gdolei Olam, one of the giants. As a 24-year-old Avrech was sent to Panama to be the head rabbi. When he arrived over there, he says, there's no mikveh. I told you part of the deal, you have to have a mikveh. He said, mikveh, shmikveh. Come on, rabbi, forget about it. He tells the Kehillah, 24-year-old Avrech. We're talking about the people in Panama. I went to Panama 5-6 times in my life, and when I was still in the business world. And it's a very interesting place, some beautiful stuff over there, and extraordinarily wealthy people. Some people over there, Baruch Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed them with literally billions of dollars, an enormous amount of power, and so on. So anyway, here we have 24-year-old Avrech comes to a Kehillah where you have members in the Kehillah literally worth hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and have political powers to the point where they literally practically control the country. And he's telling them, if you don't get me a mikveh by this day, within like a few days, I'm leaving. They thought he's joking. You're going to leave the penthouse we gave you, the fancy house we gave you. You lived in a hole in the wall. You're going to leave this place. They didn't take him seriously. Day came, he left his house with the suitcases, went to the airport. They realized that he was serious. They begged him to come back. Please, we're sorry until we got you over here. Please. He said, you have short amount of time, you have to get the mikveh open right away. They had to literally build a mikveh with like extraordinary time. Extraordinary timing. Right away they had to do it. Why? That's the Torah. 24-year-old. Not that long later, some of the community wealthy people decided they wanted to do something for the sake of kiruv, but their own version of kiruv. What do people do this today? They open a nightclub for Jewish people. Nightclub for Jewish people. People, do this stuff in synagogues today. Where they say, we're going to have a singles event at the synagogue. So instead of them sinning with the non-Jews, they'll sin with the Jews. Like instead of intermarriage, we'll have Isur Nidad. This is karet. And they actually think this is kiruv, but this is a mitzvah. 100% forbidden, these singles events and all of this nonsense. That's not the way of Am Yisrael. But nonetheless, these people in Panama didn't realize they have the Gadol Adol that's 24 years old among them. And these guys bought a building. They bought a building to have a Jewish nightclub. Rav Tzion Levi heard about this. He went to the place, saw it. On Shabbat, everybody came to shul. It was, everybody respected going to shul and so on. Even some people that wouldn't keep Shabbat. Everybody came to shul. Rav Tzion Levi says to them, I decree I decree that you're going to sell this place. What? Anytime a Jewish community buys something, you have to ask the rabbi, who gave you permission to buy this building, to open such a place? And therefore I decree that you're going to sell this building, and all of the money is going to go to the synagogue to build a new kippah for the building to be seen everywhere in the country. Something that's going to make Kiddush Hashem. The community, talk about millionaires and billionaires among them, looks at a 24-year-old and says, we're sorry, Kvod Rav, you're right. We'll sell the building, give all the money to the synagogue, and make it fancier for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How did the Rav Tzion Levi do such a thing? How did the Rav Ovadia do the same thing? How did the Rav Kreisberg do the same thing? How did these Gdolei Olam do this? And yet today you have people afraid to tell their community not to desecrate Shabbos. How? Chizda, I don't need you. When a rabbi lets his community know that you need me, not I need you. You need me, not that I need you. Then he will be able to successfully teach his students and get them to do something. But if they think the opposite, you've already failed. You might as well go become some janitor somewhere else. But then unfortunately, Rabotai, there are sometimes people that go off the derech. Like the three that we talked about, Klukowski, Otero, and Meza, and people that are similar to them. How does such a thing happen? The same exact thing. It's not that Klukowski didn't tell them, I don't need you. It's that Klukowski knew from day one he needs Meza, because Meza gave him a job at some point years ago. And if that's not bad enough, none of them have a rabbi. Not Meza, not Otero, not Klukowski. They're all their own rabbi. They all are their own Moshe Rabbeinu. They all listen to themselves. And when a person does not have a rabbi, there's nothing worse than that. Why? There's nobody out there to tell him, Habibi, I don't need you. You need me. And therefore, you have to listen to me. And what you're doing is wrong. No one is telling them what they're doing is wrong. All they have is friends. All they have is colleagues. All they have is people that are falling down with them. Further and further and further away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabotai Yekarim, this is one of the critical things that each and every one of us has to always know. If you do not have a rabbi, you have no security whatsoever that you will remain Jewish b'chlal. You have no security whatsoever that your children will remain Jewish b'chlal. Why? You have nobody telling you you're wrong, you need to do tshuva. If you don't have a rabbi that's going to tell you you're wrong, you need to do tshuva, you are extremely vulnerable. And if you're even worse, like these three, where you don't want to listen to anybody, even if they did tell you, then you, my friend, are almost a lost cause. Almost. The reason I say almost is because anyone that's alive, still physically alive, technically can do tshuva. Technically. And even that has an exception. Be'ezrat Hashem, we always realize who our rabbis are, what we need to do, where we stand, what our responsibility is, and clarify in our own mind over and over and over again how much we need this, how much we need our rabbis, how much we need to learn from them in every opportunity, appreciate them as much as possible, help them in any way possible, support them in every way possible, try to do whatever we can to build the Torah. Why? It's for ourselves. We benefit from it. It's not for the rabbi. If Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to have the rabbi have money, he'll have money in a million and a half different ways. A lot of people thought, oh yeah, look, Rav Ovadia, how is he going to eat? What is he going to eat? His books? How is he going to eat? When he first married the Rabbanit, everybody made fun of the Rabbanit. Why are you marrying this guy? He's not going to work. He's going to learn Torah non-stop. What are you going to eat? His books? But the Rabbanit knew what she had in her hands. She knew she had a Gdolador in her hands. She knew she had a Tzaddik in her hands. She stuck with him, and Baruch Hashem, money was never a problem. Money was never a problem after things settled down, and Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Ovadia started becoming well-known around the world, eventually becoming extraordinarily wealthy. In the beginning, of course, they dealt with a lot of difficulties. They lived in a one-room apartment with no bathroom and no kitchen, and no bedroom. So, of course, there was difficulty. But because they stuck to the Torah, Kadosh Baruch Hu rewards those that learn Torah and toil over Torah through poverty to make sure that they arrive to richness. But what do you think? Rabbi Ovadia did it by himself? Absolutely not. He had a rabbi, and he understood the value of the rabbi. And everyone that ever made it in Judaism to anything of value, anyone that has children that have made it to anything of value, knew I can only cross the street if the rabbi says it's okay. But as soon as you start hearing people disregarding the rabbis as if, they're just like us, no big deal, no this, you already know these people are on a downward spiral with possible disasters being very, very near, very soon, and unfortunately, very often. B'ezrat Hashem, we always know what the truth is. We always follow it. We always do it. And follow what our rabbis say through thick and thin. And make sure that we have our children follow what the rabbis say through thick and thin. Because when we do that, we have the protection of the Torah. With that being said, Rabotai, you can now have as many questions as you want over perhaps the next hour or so. Let's. David, can you elaborate on the men's mikveh laws of being undressed in front of other men? What's written, source, and so on. I mean, there's halachot in regards to mikveh. I mean, as far as a few things I can tell you off the top of my head, a man should not go to the mikveh with his son. The son should never see the father naked, and so on. That's one thing that's very well known. Second off, a man should never look at another man's private area, even if they're both naked in the mikveh and they are both comfortable with themselves and so on. You're not allowed to look at another person's private parts, not man, not female, and actually not even animals. When you see if there's animals mating, you're not allowed to see things like this because it creates all types of tumah and thoughts in a person's mind and so on. That's another thing. As far as being naked in front of another person, you're allowed to in essence do that, but technically a person should be modest to the way they should cover themselves until they get to the actual water itself. So you should always have a towel. As soon as you get to the mikveh itself, you take off the towel, which means that your back is facing everybody else. So no one's really seeing the front of you. You dip into the water, so that way everybody that would see your face is only seeing your face. The rest of your body is covered. Now, as soon as you finish dipping, however many times you dip, whether it's 1 time or 3 times or 7 times, everybody has their own customs. You get out of the mikveh. Obviously, you should try to get cover yourself as much as you can, and get yourself the towel and cover yourself immediately. Cover yourself immediately. Don't be like one of these people that's like the Greeks and the Romans walks around with like a free willy, like you're some whale or something. Don't do that. Cover yourself. Have some respect. Have some honor for you, and cover yourself. Now, obviously, if you see somebody else's private part or somebody else sees you, and it's, let's say, more of like it's in a direct area of vision, not that you're specifically looking at it or they're specifically looking at it, that's not a problem. It's not a problem. But the point is to have some modesty. Now, if you see that the mikveh that you're going to has people that are simply have no tact whatsoever, have no modesty whatsoever, and are simply like one of these horses that likes to dip into a pool. That's all they are. They're proud that they're into water. They think that that's going to fix all of their sins while they're sinning. Like this Klokowski on one of his videos, he's proud of the fact that he just finished dipping into a mikveh, and a few moments later he tells you about how he desecrated Shabbat. So you have people like that. Obviously, you have to be more conscious of that. But if you see that there's people walking around naked all the time with no class, no ethics, no censorship, no nothing. They simply think that it's okay to be a whale, even if you're a human. Then you should try to avoid these people. You should try to avoid these people. Come to the mikveh at times that they're not coming, either much earlier or a little later, or different days, or change mikveh. Change mikveh. Simply speaking, you should not go to a mikveh where there's a bunch of whales walking around. The best thing to do, really, if you're going to go to a mikveh on a regular basis, is do as much as you can to be the first one there. To be the first one there. Then there's a lot of reasons for it. One of them is this, the whole immodesty issue. Another reason is the fact that if you have a very active mikveh, then, if it's a really active mikveh, like some out there, then by the time you get there, it's like the mikveh, and then there's like the layer of stuff that's, floating in the water that's kind of gross. It's best to be first. Best to be first if you can. If you can't, you can't. There is no obligation for a man to go to a mikveh. There used to be a takana that men had to go to the mikveh every time they were together with their wives, but Ezra Sofer saw that the men were not able to uphold this particular rabbinical enactment, and therefore they canceled it. So there's no obligation for a man to go to a mikveh. The obligation to go to a mikveh is... Oh, I just realized the microphone is not even close to me. The man is not obligated to go to the mikveh. The women are obligated to the mikveh. That's an obligation. It's a Torah obligation. If a woman does not go to a mikveh, her husband is not allowed to touch her. Not allowed to touch her. And that's why Rav Tzion Levi, for example, in our story that we told earlier, that's why Rav Tzion Levi picked up and practically left the new community they just moved into, because they weren't gonna, open a mikveh like they promised. So a man is not obligated to go to a mikveh. He could go to a mikveh, and in some cases he should go to a mikveh, but there's no obligation to do it. If going to the mikveh is going to lead you to sin as a man, then it is much better that you never go to the mikveh. Never go to the mikveh at all. But if you have a kosher mikveh, you have a mikveh that has reasonable people that are have their marbles together, and have some decency, then you should go to a mikveh. It's a very holy thing to do. Okay, Reuven is asking, I have a friend who Klokowski was one of the three on their bed din for Gerut. The other were kosher Talmidei Chachamim, who I highly doubt know that Klokowski really is. Is such a Gerut kosher? Should he make a Giyul Lechumrah? You would have to go to a bed din for such a thing, but I don't think you'd have would have to get a second conversion if the others were kosher, Talmidei Chachamim, and so on. Plus, who knows when Klokowski became like he is right now. I don't know if it's always been this way, but generally speaking, it's not too often that they would cancel a conversion and say it's not valid. Especially if it's, the other people were kosher Jews and so on. Generally, the times that, you have a lot more stringency as far as conversions is if the person that converted themselves didn't keep any mitzvot from day one. Like they never kept Shabbat and so on. Then that person, obviously, they could have fooled the bed din, but they didn't fool Hashem. That person is still a goy, according to most opinions. Or if the bed din is reform or conservative rabbis or apikosim, that at the time of the conversion, and it's well known already by then, that they are That's usually when you have a conversion that's not valid to begin with. But once a conversion is valid, generally speaking, they don't undo it. If a person has a conversion by somebody that's a kosher person, and later on that person goes off the derech, that doesn't change their conversion. They're still kosher. There's no problem with it. But again, it's important to pick your rabbi well, and not just go to anybody that's going to convert you, the first one to convert you, or for the best price. That's a lot of people make decisions like that because they don't really know better. But if you can get guidance for things like that, you should go to someone that's well known, well respected rabbi. That you know that if somebody else in a different community heard his name, it would help you rather than hurt you. This is also why I tell people that with conversions by people like not people like Asher Meza's conversion or Otero's conversion, I believe only destroys people's lives. They don't help them, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, the overwhelming majority of the people that Asher Meza converts should never be Jewish to begin with, because they have no concept of what being Jewish is, and they're not willing to make the sacrifices to become a Jew. They want to still live non-Jewish lives, but call themselves Jews for better or for worse. And you see these so-called rabbis, Meza and Otero, converting the people by the masses by going to a mixed beach, and then you have Otero over there taking pictures of the half-naked women and putting it on his Facebook page and on his YouTube page and so on. So obviously you see that these people have no concept of what conversion to Judaism is, because their rabbis, Otero and Meza themselves, have no concept of what Judaism is and what Torah is and what modesty is and what tact is or what anything is. That's the reason number one. Reason number two is because it's, at this point, Meza is well known in many communities as an apikoros, as a person that creates a lot of problems in the Jewish community. I already had several people contact me from Colorado, from different places in Florida and other places that have a lot of dirt, let's say, or about the problems that he has. And he even himself says that more than half of the people that he converted are not accepted by any community. So why would anybody want such a conversion that's not accepted by any community? I just don't understand that. I mean, you're pretty much signing yourself up to have a very high likelihood that you're going to be rejected wherever you go. And your kids will be rejected wherever you go. And you may not care about yourself because you have a chip on your shoulder and you think that you know enough that it doesn't really matter where you convert because you know what you need to do and so on. Yeah, but what about your kids? You may not care about where you are because you are in your own planet in your mind, and your wife doesn't care where she is because she's in her own planet, or vice versa. Fine. But what about your kids that perhaps one day want to go to a yeshiva? Perhaps they want to have like a normal shidduch from some frum family. You think anyone's going to marry them? You think anyone's even going to want to go on a date with them? Absolutely not. And your kids are not going to understand the chip you had on your shoulder and the excuse you had to use somebody that's not even a person that doesn't follow halacha. It's a person that's well known as a person that goes and breaks the fence of Judaism. So that's the thing. You're going into it, with a reality that you will have a lot of problems. Why? Like, what is there like some type of like a mission in your life to create suffering for yourself? I mean, usually suffering comes by itself to people's lives. Why create suffering for yourself? Now you could say, no, listen, he's the only one that would convert me because I live in like the middle of nowhere, Montana. I live in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. Well, let me break it to you. If you live in the middle of nowhere and you're not part of a Jewish community, you should not convert to Judaism, because you do not know enough and will not know enough on your own to live a righteous Jewish life. You simply will not. You won't know what to do on Rosh Hashanah. You won't know what to do on Rosh Chodesh. You won't know what to do on Yom Kippur. But now, unlike when you were not Jewish, where it wasn't a sin for you to do anything that's the opposite of what the halacha is. Now it's a sin. Now it's a sin. Now you're going to get genom for it. So again, it's really misleading the public in such a fashion that it causes a lot of harm for people. And hence the reason why it's something we have to talk about. So I think it's important for people to know that it's you don't necessarily need to go to a bet din that is recognized by the Rabbanut of Israel, because there's plenty of good bet dins of kosher rabbis that are not public, that are not part of the Rabbanut, because the Rabbanut is not accepting anybody new anyway. And aside from that, it's a whole political situation that's beyond anybody's control. It's one day we would like to have a bet din of our own. Whether it will be accepted by the Rabbanut or not will remain to be seen, but we don't have a bet din right now. All of our students, we take them to a bet din that is recognized by the Rabbanut. Either the couple of people we did in Florida, we took them to the bet din of Miami over there, or South Florida over there, and then most of our students, we took them to Rabbi Eliyahu ben Chaim in New York. He's one of the most well-recognized rabbis in America, needless to say, in the world of conversions. And then we had a couple of conversions in Israel and so on also. But the point being is that all are recognized by the Rabbanut in Israel, just in case somebody wants to make aliyah or so on. Now, does that mean that all bet dins that are not part of the Rabbanut are not kosher or not good? No, it doesn't mean that. There are very good bet dins that are not part of the Rabbanut, but not mezas, not oteros. Why? It's not because that they're not part of the Rabbanut that they're not good. It's because they are not good. They don't follow halacha. When their rabbi openly says, Kolkowski says that he desecrates Shabbat practically, okay? He is desecrating Hashem's name, walks around with Hasidic garb on Shabbat in movie theaters. You have people like that. And when these guys are taking pictures of women that are half naked, going into a beach and putting it on the internet, when you have them, desecrating Torah on a regular basis, and that's the person that converted you, that conversion paperwork is worth no more than toilet paper. No one will ever accept such a thing. But if you have a serious Talmid Chacham that knows what he's doing, is a kosher person, and they convert you, and there's no problem. But again, you also have to be careful who you go to. You have to also don't be a sucker and just pay any price. It's you have to be patient, and you have to also know what you're doing. But nonetheless, a person needs to know that if Hashem wants you to convert, He'll open all the doors that needs to open. If none of the doors are opening, then you should be a little bit more patient. I'm not saying give up, but you should be a little bit more patient. And don't make abrupt decisions and decisions that are going to cost you a lot more than money. One is asking for in Parashat Chukat in a commentary, why has it been said that the sin of the golden calf has never been completely forgiven? Until when or where or ever will it be forgiven? The sin of the golden calf was something that was beyond the ability of Am Yisrael to have it forgiven, because if there's no such thing as a sin that just eliminated just by a person saying I'm sorry. Everything has a consequence. Once a person shoots a bullet, even if he regrets the fact that he shot a bullet, or he regrets the fact that he jumped off of a building, it's already done. There's going to be an effect. That bullet will hit something. That person is falling. There's just no way about it. So once a sin happens, that's it. Sin is there. There is a taint. There is a stain. There is a damage in the universe. There is a damage in the spiritual world from that sin. Now, the damage created by the golden calf was too much for Am Yisrael to bear, meaning that they could not fix that stain in a single way. Because if, let's say, for example, if you have if you have kids, sometimes, your kids go outside, they come home, you give them new clothes, they come home and they got mud and colors and all types of stuff on their clothes when they come home. And, you throw it into the wash and most of the stuff comes off. Sometimes it stains, and if you have to wash it a little bit more, perhaps put some bleach on it and all types of things. But nonetheless, you keep washing and sometimes replacing and so on. But if the kid goes outside and he comes home with tar not only on the clothes but on himself. Now, you could put that kid in the shower for 3 hours. It's not coming out. It's not coming out just because you put some water on it. You could put some soap on it too. It's not coming out so easily. There are certain things that require a little more effort. You have to scratch it off. You have to wait. You have to, it may even take a few days for certain things. It may take a few days. It may take a lot of effort. You may have to peel some skin even, with certain chemicals and so on, or meaning that you would have to wait for the skin to regenerate and therefore, have the chemicals taken out of the body. But the point being is that with each stain, there's a certain amount of cleaning that has to be done. With the stain that was created by the golden calf, cleaning it in one shot would have destroyed Am Yisrael. And therefore Hashem split up the cleaning process, the rectification of the sin of the golden calf for all generations. For all generations until Mashiach comes. For all generations until Mashiach comes, because if he would do any more than that, it would destroy the nation. So, because it was that big of a sin. Next question, Katya is asking, if a woman is blessed with gifts such as the ability to sing, artistic abilities, and so on, would it be considered immodest for to be able to act upon those gifts? It all depends on how she acts on those gifts. Singing in general is not recommended for women because men are not allowed to hear, Jewish men are not allowed to hear women sing. Kol ha'isha erva. Jewish men are not allowed to hear a woman sing, period. Unless it's their wife and it's just one-on-one and it's wife and kids and stuff like that. But if it's like there's neighbors and family members and so on, the woman is not allowed to sing next to people. So what career are you going to have? You're going to sing to your husband? Now, there are some women that say, no, I'm going to be a kosher Jewish singer and I'll only sing to women. Now, although that is possible and it is done, I don't recommend it simply because if you fail, the Yetzer Hara is going to tell you that's because you only have, partial audience, and start putting stuff into your head that if you started singing to men with all types of clever ideas of how to do it, you'll succeed more. So already you're putting yourself in danger by singing that way. The second thing is that if you succeed, then it's a world full of traps of the Satan, and quite frankly, for all singers have to be careful of the Satan of success. Singing is not exactly an easy field to go into, especially in today's world. You see actually that there are some people that started off as good religious singers and then turn out to be people that completely left Judaism after they got success, and they fell for the trap of the Satan. They started doing drugs and started going with non-Jewish, non-religious people, and in some cases became complete apikosim. So singing in general, I don't recommend it. Can you do it? Only if it's for women. But that's, again, problematic. But it's not 100% forbidden. But it's still not recommended. But as far as art, if you're an artistic person, that's a perfectly good skill that you can develop and you should use in order to do kosher things with it. You could do a lot of good things with it. There are many Torah books and children's books that are teaching Torah that are using the art of well-known religious women that are doing the art, drawing the characters and the different things, and they really make the books a lot more fun and a lot more attractive for the kids to learn. To do such a thing would be the greatest thing you could possibly do for yourself. It's a Be'ezrat Hashem. I would love to, to have my daughter do that one day, Be'ezrat Hashem, as she grows. Baruch Hashem, she has artistic ability, and that would be a fantastic thing for her to do. But again, you have to be careful. You have to ask your rabbi, is this good? Is that good? Just because you're an artist doesn't mean that you can paint anything. Just because you're an artist doesn't mean you can do anything with art. And, so you have to have a rav that's going to direct you and tell you what to do, and you won't go right or left without him saying so. So it's not just about utilizing the ability, which you should utilize that ability, but it's also knowing how to and having someone with Da'at Torah tell you how to utilize it. But nonetheless, that's a much more valuable talent that you can use for the sake of Kedusha, and also to make a living, and also to make a very good living. There are some artists that make an extraordinary living in the Jewish world. So there's definitely ways for a person to succeed in it, to enjoy what they're doing, and to utilize the talent that they have. There's actually a well-known artist named Gadi Palak. And Gadi Palak is a Baal Tshuva who became a very serious Torah learner, but what the world knows him for is that right now, he's perhaps the most sought-after artist in the Jewish world. Pretty much, he's such a well-known artist in the Jewish world that if his name is on a book, people will buy it just because of that. They don't even care what the book is about. It could be about Mount Sinai, it could be the Agadah, it could be about Midot, it could be anything. You have Gadi Palak on it, you pretty much know it's good. And it's right. His stuff is amazing. Aside from the Torah itself that's in it, is very, very well put together and extraordinary. The Agadah for Pesach that Gadi Palak did, it's something that should be in every house, Sephardi or Ashkenazi. It's a beautiful Agadah. Beautiful Agadah. You can learn a lot from it too. But aside from that, the art that he has is something out of this world. It's something out of this world. It's beautiful stuff that's relevant to what's being discussed. A lot of artists just, do things that are just general. They just, make a picture, and the picture, is nice or not nice, depending on a person's taste. But some artists are just exceptionally talented. Gadi Palak is one of them. Now, Gadi Palak is a Baal Tshuva. And what I heard from my Rav is that when he did Tshuva, he didn't know what he was going to do, because he was an artist his whole life. And he used to make art for things that are not right according to the Torah. And so he thought maybe he's going to utilize his art in different ways or do something else. But one of the things that I heard is that his Rav told him, no, Dafka, use your art ability to sanctify Hashem's name. Sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name. And that's what he did. Same thing happened with another Baal Tshuva that is in Israel who, I forget the name, but he was a well-known artist, and he put art to every Mishnah. Every Mishnah in the Shas Mishnayot in Hebrew, and there's a drawing for each one of them that he did, and it's a very, very well-known set of books, in Hebrew, and that children learn, and even adults, because the art that he made makes it much easier for people to learn. Unfortunately, they only translated one of the tractates of this particular set to English. It's only for Masechet Shabbat, but nonetheless, this is an artist that was a Baal Tshuva that used his talents for the sake of Torah. So there is definitely a lot of need for art and for artists and for people that are talented, and you can use your talents. But again, you have to discuss these things with your rabbi and make sure that you follow whatever the rabbi says. And do it. And you could definitely use those gifts Hashem gave you. Charlie is asking, if you did full tshuva a few years ago for sexual sins with a non-Jewish woman, and do feel sorry for the sins, but still think of the sin once in a while, does new tshuva need to be done? Tshuva has several different steps, as we discussed. First of all is stopping the sin. Second of all is putting a fence around it in order to not come back to it. And third is regret. Now, regret, there are stages of regret. There's regret that I just messed up, and then there's regret that's even deeper that comes from disgust, where I regret I was even present in such a place, where you're reviled by such a thing. And I have one person that I know that when they first started doing tshuva, specifically for same issue, for intermarriage or being with non-Jewish women and so on, initially said, okay, I'm not going to do it again and so on. But as they got more and more religious and more into Torah, more and more learning, they start saying to me, like, I can't believe it. I can't believe I did it. It's okay, fine. Don't kill yourself over it. Okay, good, you didn't do it. But, move on. And they would just harp on it constantly. And I told them, okay, you know what? If you really feel that bad, go pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with 100% tears. Like, cry your heart out. Cry your heart out. Beg Hashem for forgiveness. That you can't believe that you did it. That you messed up. That you didn't know. Like, really, really cry your heart out. And after that, you're finished. What? Once you cry your heart out for something, that's it. You feel already. It's not a matter of I'm sorry for it. It's that you've cried so much over something that you're disgusted with it already. It's disgusting. It's like ugh. And that's really where you need to get to. So it's not a whole new tshuva. It's just that elevating your tshuva a little bit more to get to a point of disgust of the sin. Get to a point of disgust. I think the shiur we did last week talked about disgusting life. I highly recommend that shiur to people on a regular basis. I think it's a very important shkafic teachings to know that we're, in essence, our goal, our aspiration should be to become disgusted by the sins. Not just stay away from them, but become disgusted by them. Ariel is asking, question, in the Talmud Masechet Gittin, page 57a, it says that Jesus told Onkelos to convert, which you have mentioned in the past. My question is, doesn't it say elsewhere that a liar in this world is also a liar in the next world? Yes, it does say a liar in this world is a liar in this world is a liar in the next world. But JC wasn't necessarily known to be a liar. He was known to be an arrogant womanizer. He was an arrogant womanizer, and he chased women, and he was an adulterer like his mother, and he had a big ego. So even when his rabbi told him to do tshuva, he didn't do it. So obviously, when a person gets burned in Gehinom on a regular basis by fecal matter and so on, there's really no room for ego over there. So that's the case, but it's not necessarily the liar part. More of the lies were done after him rather than by him. Neshama is asking, does Torah talk about burning sage in one home to do a cleansing? And is this practice forbidden against? Okay. No, I mean, there are different Kabbalistic things that some Mekubalim do in order to spiritual cleansing and so on. But generally speaking, this stuff is not really practiced by real Kabbalists anymore, because a lot of the stuff that used to be problematic in the past is almost unheard of. And also, most of the stuff that anyone would ever need is very easy to get. First of all, is make sure that in your house there's someone learning Torah on a regular basis. Not all the time. It doesn't necessarily need to be a 24 hours a day bet midrash, but make sure that the people of the house, the man of the house, is learning Torah every day, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a day. They're learning Torah. They're doing mitzvot. They're following things and so on. That's number one. Second thing is, make sure you have very good quality mezuzot. Very good quality mezuzot, that's critical. Third is eliminate any form of idolatry. Any form of idolatry from your house, you have to be very careful with idolatry. Eliminate it. Fourth is any type of immorality, immodesty, you have to eliminate it from the house. So when a person does these few things, They have somebody learning Torah. They have good quality mezuzot. They don't have idolatry or immorality in their house. They don't need any more spiritual cleansing than that. And if they do, it's probably better for them to move. Because then they probably have some type of dibuk or something in the house, or some type of demon in the house that only a few people in the world know how to remove. If a Jew doubles speeds a 10-minute shiur, meaning 2x speed, what will his reward be based on? Either 10 minutes or 5 minutes? 5 minutes. You didn't learn 10 minutes of Torah, you learned 5 minutes of Torah. So therefore you get a reward for 5 minutes. If one removed the light bulb from inside the fridge, but the switch that closes or opens the circuit inside the fridge is still opening and closing the circuit, does that count as being completed? No. If the light is not being turned on, then it's fine. You're perfectly fine as long as the light is not being turned on and off. Yesterday you spoke about Onyx Shabbat. How is a Noahide supposed to keep Onyx Shabbat? A Noahide is not supposed to keep Shabbat, period. There is no Shabbat for Noahides. For a Noahide to keep Shabbat is a violation of the Torah. They're not allowed to keep Shabbat because it's considered stealing, which is a violation of one of the 7 commandments for the Noahides. They're not allowed to steal. Because Shabbat is a brit, beni u benechem, Hashem says in the Torah. It's a covenant between me and you, me and the Jewish people, not me and the world. Shabbat is a Jewish mitzvah. A Noahide that keeps Shabbat, Rambam says, is death penalty. So Noahide is not allowed to keep Shabbat. Now, the exception to the rule is if that Noahide is in a legitimate conversion process. And even then, they only keep 99% of Shabbat. 99%, meaning they have to intentionally desecrate Shabbat with something small like turning on or off the light or something like that on Shabbat one time. But in that particular case, a person that's in the process of conversion would keep Shabbat and Onyx Shabbat just like a Jew. But if they're not intending to convert in the near future, they are not allowed to keep Shabbat, and therefore Onyx Shabbat is not relevant. Saul is asking, is there a way to say a bracha before drinking from a water fountain? It feels like no, due to not having all the water in one cup. You don't need to have all the water in one cup to make a blessing. If you're thirsty, you have to make a blessing. It's not a matter of it being in a cup. If you're thirsty, if you're drinking because you're thirsty, then you have to make a blessing before you drink. Jack is asking, question of people that are converting, what incentive do they have to convert? Why convert? If you could achieve the same results if you're a righteous Gentile like Job, Noah, Hanoch, Adam, if you want to attain higher spirituality, who's to stop you? Why the need to go through all the process of conversion? Because you're going to be held responsible for your sins in Olam Haba. Isn't it better to stay a righteous Gentile than to be a Jew? You're almost guaranteed great rewards. It's hard being a righteous Jew. Think of it as being a righteous Gentile and a heretic. Okay, I get the point. All right, so why would anybody convert? Now, of course, everybody has their own reasons of why they want to convert. And I'll tell you some things as far as the reasons that I've heard through the many converts that I've dealt with over the years. And I'll also tell you of some of the reasons they should convert even if they don't know. As far as the reasons of why people convert to Judaism is because they want more than just a unorganized way of serving Hashem as a Noahide. Generally speaking, Noahides do not have an organized format of serving Hashem. So when they pray from their own words. They don't pray from a siddur. When they are doing eating something, there's no blessing. There's no holidays. There's no gatherings of the community. Even though there's a few places where there are Noahides, generally speaking, there's no real legitimate Noahide communities everywhere. So really, when you are a Noahide, you're on your own. You're on your own, and it's very difficult to remain on your own, as far as growing that over time. Why? Because you may be okay being on your own because you've already lived life, saw the world, and decided that this is the right way. But your kids may want to go somewhere else. Your kids may want to go in a different direction. So your kids, that are on the path with you in the beginning as a Noahide, one day they're going to grow up. They're going to want to, go and date and get married with somebody. And they may, meet somebody that they could believe they could build a family with that's not only not a Noahide, but is actually a idol worshiper. So what are you going to tell them? No, you're not allowed to marry a Christian because you're a Noahide? Good luck with that one. So the longevity of a Noahide is very, very difficult to maintain. That's another reason. The third reason is that there's people want to be part of the chosen people. They want to be part of Klal Yisrael because they know Am Yisrael is special. Am Yisrael is the oldest nation in the world. It's the nation that outlived all of its enemies, and Be'ezrat Hashem will continue to outlive all of its enemies. All of the people that try to destroy us, Hashem destroyed them. All of the enemies of Am Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu removed from the world and protected us. Despite the whole process being very painful, we are here and they are not. Now, the Noahides don't have such a protection because there is no Noahide nation. There is no Noahide nation. So if, let's say, you're a Asian Noahide and people decide that, we're going to, go to war with Asia. We're going to go to war with China or some other, India or something like that. There's no, unity among the Noahides in that country, or even around the world. But a Jew, doesn't matter if he lives in India or he lives in Pakistan. It doesn't matter if he lives in Australia or America. It doesn't matter if he lives in a hole or a mansion. Once there's issues in the world, we unite. We simply unite. Why? Because we all know at the end of the day, they're uniting us even if we don't want to unite each other, with each other. So there is a unity, and people want to be part of that unity. That unity is the oldest unity in the world. So that's another reason. Now, there are some other things that perhaps a person doesn't understand, whether they're a Noahide in the process of conversion, or they're a convert already, or they're a Jew. And these are the things that you should know. Being a righteous Noahide is a lot more difficult than people think. That's why I always tell people, if you have the ability to convert and you don't, you are an idiot. Why? Because to convert to become a Jew gives you not only a bigger burden of mitzvot, if you will, and so on, but in reality, it's a bigger opportunity to serve Hashem on a higher level. But aside from that, it gives you a get-out-of-jail-free card that you don't have as a Noahide. What's that get-out-of-jail-free card? Tshuva. Tshuva is a special gift Hashem gave to Am Yisrael, meaning that although all people can technically repent and say, I'm sorry to Hashem, if the person is a Jew and they repent at the highest level, they do tshuva at the highest level, meaning not just from fear of punishment and Gehenna, but also even fear of the Almighty and His majesty and even loving Him and so on, HaKadosh Baruch Hu turns all of the sins into mitzvot. They get rewarded for some of their mistakes in the past due to this tshuva. But even if they don't go to the highest level of tshuva, they still they lower the punishment because the intentional sins become accidental. The accidental sins become pretty much non-existent. The Noahide doesn't have such a thing. A Noahide says, I'm sorry. Hashem says, okay, no problem, I accept it and I forgive you, but I still have to punish you. Not permanent like it was before, but a Noahide will still have to be punished. Why? The tshuva, the full tshuva, the irrational tshuva is only a special gift for the Jewish people. So that's also when it comes to Gehenom, the options are much better for the Jew, to say the least, as far as avoiding punishment. The same thing goes with heaven. The heaven of a righteous Noahide is nothing in comparison to the heaven of a righteous Jew. Meaning, if you're already going to serve Hashem to the best of your ability and so on, you want to get the best, price for what you're doing, right? The highest level of heaven for a Noahide is nowhere near standard heaven for a Jew. They have a lower heaven. It's a completely different heaven. and it's much lower than a Jew's heaven, both because the Jew has to do a lot more in order to earn heaven, and also because there's a lot more on the line for the Jew to lose if they don't follow suit. So the heaven, the reward for a Jew is a world apart, or worlds apart, than the Noahide. There's nothing in comparison. Third, there isn't a special protection over the Noahide like there is on the Jew. Both spiritual and physical. Hashem did not promise the righteous Noahides that he'll feed them and bathe them and never eliminate them and so on and so forth. All those promises are only for Jews. All those promises are only for Jews. The special blessings for Jews. Now, of course, there are blessings for righteous Noahides, but let's not think for a moment it's the same thing. Even if they are righteous, they're not. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. That's another thing. Also, in regards to the Gentiles that you're mentioning, Noah, Job, Chanoch, Adam HaRishon, and so on, they are not normal Noahides. Why are they not normal Noahides? Because there was no other option beforehand. So even though technically Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov technically are considered Noahides, if you will, they're not considered Noahides like a Noahide would be today. Why? Because the Torah they're only considered Noahides because the Torah wasn't officially given to the entire people yet. They had it and they followed it, but it wasn't a nation yet. So they were only in that class because there wasn't a Jew officially yet until Mount Sinai. So a Noahide of today is not related to Jacob. It's not related to Isaac. It's not necessarily related to Abraham. So that's another. It's completely two different animals. Everyone is related to Noah because the world restarted all over again from Noah, or the same thing with Adam. Same thing. Also with Job. Job lived at a time before Matan Torah, before the acceptance of the Torah. So that's another thing. So it's not the same type of thing. The other thing is also, again, you can't really put the average person of today in the same caliber as the most righteous people that ever lived, too. Job is one of the most righteous people that ever lived. Noah is one of the most righteous people that ever lived. Chanoch turned into an angel. He became Malach Memtet. He's not even a human being anymore. Adam HaRishon is, for all intents and purposes, also is not really a typical human being. So it's not really the same apple to apple type of thing. And also the expectation that Hashem had from those people that you're mentioning is much higher than he does for a regular Noahide of today. Therefore, their reward was much higher. But also his tolerance for mistakes of your typical Noahide today is very different. So that's another thing. The reward and the punishment and the tshuva, pretty much the whole spiritual aspect, the whole spiritual world of the Jew is completely different than the Noahide. Completely different. And so that's another thing. Longevity, like I said before, is almost non-existent in a Noahide world. And if a person can convert, they should convert. But really the biggest thing would be is that if a person truly loves Hashem, then they should want to serve Him in the best possible way. If a person truly loves their wife, they should express their love to their wife the best possible way, and not just say, "Hey, listen, what's what's say it, speak." Oh, he writes her a text message. 143. Speak! Say something. Why? You really love me. Say something. Say something. Say I love you. What are you, mute? Say something. You shy? You're not shy when, come on. So it's the same thing. Person serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu, I love you Hashem, but they only want to serve him with a few mitzvot. It's a joke. So more a person loves Hashem, the more they want to serve Hashem. They have to look at the mitzvot as opportunities to connect to Hashem. as opportunities to serve Hashem, as opportunities to love, to show the expression of love to Hashem. That's what a person loves Hashem does. And and just because they're serving Him less doesn't mean that their punishment is less. That's a mistake, because the punishment for a Noahide is much more severe in many cases than a Jew. Why? Because, for example, we have different punishments for different sins as Jews. If a person steals and he returns it on his own, then he's okay. If he steals and he gets caught, he has to pay double. Okay? A non-Jew steals, death penalty. Okay? Whether he steals $1 or he steals $100 billion, it's death penalty. Death penalty by the Torah. Okay? Everything for the non-Jew is death penalty. There is no slap him on the wrist, whip him a little bit, say I'm sorry. No, everything is death penalty for the Noahide. So it's not exactly the ideal situation for someone that can do more, for someone that can serve Hashem better, because again, although there are more mitzvot, there is lesser punishment for your mess up. There is more ways to rectify. There's more leniency to fix certain things, and there's more mercy. In so many words, it's a bigger deal, but it's a better deal. Whereas the Noahide thinks that he's saving himself with some time and some obligations, but it's not necessarily the case. If he messes up in anything, which he will, he is earning himself a punishment that is severe. That's it. It's just the reality of things. So that's why I tell people, don't think that just because you have less mitzvot, you have a better deal. It's not a better deal. It's a lesser reward. It's in many cases a bigger punishment, and it's there's many more ways to mess up than people imagine. Many more ways to mess up people imagine. And I think personally, for a person that has Baruch Hashem a family, and as being one of my most important things in my life, but also one of the things that I talk to people about more than most things. I think that anybody that's in this world that's not a teenager, someone that's already married and thinking about the future and so on, wants longevity, wants their kids to continue doing what they're doing. It's almost impossible to do that as a Noahide. It's almost impossible to do that as a Noahide. Pretty much, it's very likely that the Noahide's children were either go to and become a different religion of idolatry. Sometimes they'll become Jews, but many times they'll become atheists and or agnostic, they call it, but really it's just another form of atheism, because they just live in the world like an animal and listen to nothing and no one. So it's not such a great bargain like people think. As soon as a person has the ability to convert, they should convert immediately, because the Gemara says that anyone that delays their own conversion, not because the Bet Din delays it, or financial difficulties delay it, or things like that, but they themselves delay it because they want to have a good time. They want to make some more sins for a little longer. That's not really a sin for them anymore. They'll actually get punished for that. Once they become a Jew, Hashem will actually rebuke them for not converting sooner, because they already knew the truth and they delayed serving Him to its full potential. The Gemara says that Hashem will punish them for it. So the ideal situation for a person is to serve Hashem at the highest possible capacity. So many words, you wake up in the morning only because Hashem allowed you to wake up, and your whole job of the day is to serve Hashem and connect Hashem to everything you do in your life. Even if you're working and you're cleaning bathrooms, or you're selling cars, or you're building houses, or whatever, but you have to connect Hashem to everything that you do. That's what a person is supposed to live like. From morning until sleep, Hashem is part of their life, is part of their thoughts, all day, every day, and really try to emulate our forefathers that literally thought about Hashem 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to the point where they were able to manipulate nature, because they really didn't belong among the commoners of the world, because they were so holy. So When a person is a Noahide, it's not it's not necessarily as easy to do that, because you're also surrounded by people that are most likely not in the same direction as you. Whereas in the Jewish world, there are Jewish communities where you'll have some really good people that you can have support back and forth with, and build something together with, and be part of a community. You don't really have that in the Noahide world. So that community can mean a lot to somebody. Now, again, a person can become holy as a righteous Noahide. There's no question about it. Eliyahu Navi says in Tana Devei Eliyahu that whether Jew or Gentile, whether man or female, whether a rich person or a maidservant, everyone can get to a point of having Ruach HaKodesh. As far as having a extraordinary spiritual power that's beyond our comprehension, if they're holy enough, not because they woke up on the right side of the bed, but if they they sanctify themselves, they can get to a point of Ruach HaKodesh. But that's going to be a lot more difficult to do if you're surrounded by a bunch of idol worshippers, which is very common in the vast majority of the world. And you're going to say, no, I'll live in a religious Jewish community. So if you're going to live in a religious Jewish community with the kollel next door and a synagogue next door, why don't you just become a Jew? What, you think you're saving yourself any punishment or any responsibility because of it? You're not. You're actually taking a very, very big risk. Very, very big risk. Much bigger risk than you can imagine, because if you do mess up, your way back home is much more difficult. Much more difficult. So if a person can convert, they should. And they should do it as soon as they possibly can. We're almost done. I guess, dear Rabbi, that you are my rabbi. There's no one within 30 miles of where I am. Okay, no problem. But just you have to do whatever you possibly can to move closer to a Jewish community. You have to move closer to the Jewish community. For now, obviously, we do the best that we possibly can. But to communicate and to talk and to anyone that asks us questions and so on, that's important. But a person should do their best to move closer to whoever their rabbi is. You don't necessarily need to live next door to your rabbi. My rabbi lives in Israel. But I make sure that I do whatever I can to, and exert myself as much as I can to make sure that I'm always on the same page as my rabbi. Now, of course, I have a little bit of a unique blessing in my life that my rabbi is also my chavruta, and he's also my partner in the organization of Bezrat Hashem, and he's also pretty much the most important person in my life. That's a very unique situation, so I talk to him every day in one form or another, and so on. But nonetheless, if a person is not, as fortunate to have such a thing, that doesn't mean that they can't have a very successful relationship with their rabbi. They could have a successful relationship with their rabbi, but it's all based on how much you invest in it. If you invest a lot into that relationship, you'll get a lot. If you invest little into that relationship, you'll get little. Simple. Can you show proof that it's the same results of being a Noahide or a Jew? I would like to see that. No, it's not the same results. It's not the same results. I guess you're asking somebody else. Okay. Is there a Jew for a non-Jew? I already answered that. Yosef saying, please don't answer for the rabbi. Thank you, Yosef. It'd be nice if people don't answer for me, but, I guess maybe I take too long to answer the questions. All right, last question. I'm kind of tired. I have another shiur coming up in, a couple hours. In Hebrew, I'll be watching the baby dog over the week for somebody. The dog needs attention or else it cries. I know you said you shouldn't sleep in the same room as dogs, but would this be an exception? No, you should not sleep in the same room as a dog. Let him cry. You could put him outside. You could put him in a kennel. You should not sleep in the same room as a dog. Needless to say, you should never sleep in the same bed as a dog. That's a terrible idea, but don't feel so bad if you did. I used to also. I had a dog for 16 years. His name was Bully. He, at the time he was like my son, and that's before I had kids. But once I had kids, I understood that there's no comparison between dogs and kids, even though they both drive you crazy. But the point being is that, when I learned some of the things about issues of dogs and so on, I realized it's a mistake. It's a mistake to own a dog. If you don't own one, you shouldn't get one. It's my opinion, though. But some people love dogs. They want to have it. You're allowed to have it. But if you're going to have it, you still should not make any exceptions as far as allowing the dogs to sleep in your bed and things like that. That's just stupid. It's stupid. It's bad for a lot of reasons. It's bad for marriage. It's bad for a relationship. It's bad for the issues of purity and impurity. It's just not good. Just listen to what I'm saying to you. It's just not good. You want to do it? Chavod, do it. But don't. That's my suggestion. Can a Satan falsely fulfill one's prayer when he hears one making a supplication to Hashem? I'm aware he can't read one's mind, but can't he hear when one prays out loud? As far as reading the mind, it's not necessarily the case that he can't read the mind, because you have a Yetzer Hara, and your Yetzer Hara is based on your mind. It's not based on what you say. So you're thinking, I want to go and watch a Shiur Torah. I want to go to a Kollel. But then your Yetzer Hara says, yeah, but maybe you could watch sports. Where's that Yetzer Hara? You didn't say it out loud. You're saying it in your mind. And you're still fighting against yourself. And one part of you says to go to the Bet Midrash and learn Torah or watch a Shiur Torah, and the other one is saying to go watch basketball. Where is that? That's the Yetzer Hara. That's in your mind. So I don't know who told you that he can't read your mind, but it's not true. And as far as whether he could fulfill somebody's prayer, there's a lot of traps of the Satan, and sometimes the Satan will give you an indication that your wrong direction is the right direction. But I believe that if a person is, the closer a person is to the Torah, and he has, a understanding of what he needs to do, he has a rabbi that's going to guide him in one way or another, then the Satan will have less tools to trap him in such places. April, if you were going to buy a home that Avodah Zarah was practiced in it, how do you cleanse it? It depends what level of Avodah Zarah was practiced in it. Meaning that if it was a church, there are Chachamim that say that if there is no other choice, you're allowed to turn your church into a synagogue, but you have to remove everything from in it. Meaning you have to, remove any furniture. You can't reuse the furniture, paint the walls. And pretty much replace as much as you possibly can. Anything that would accept Tumah. And the same concept with a home. Obviously, don't keep any of their furniture, any of the things that they used, based on how much Avodah Zarah was practiced. If they're, let's say, they're idol worshippers, they're like Christians, Catholics, whatever they are, but they didn't necessarily serve an idol inside the house. They didn't pray to the idol or bow to the idol or did any type of sacrifices to an idol inside the house. That they left, for their temple or for their church. Then there's not much work that needs to be done to fix the house. I would recommend painting the house, but the biggest thing is just don't use their furniture and stuff like that. But that's it. But if there was actual legitimate, like church, where people were actually bowing to an idol or serving an idol in one way or another, then there's a little more work that needs to be done. More work that needs to be done to kind of eliminate as much as you possibly can. But again, that's, there's exceptions, there's case by case that you'd have to review what the situation is. Okay, guys, I have to get some rest. And we have another shiur coming up in Hebrew in the next couple of hours. תזכו למצוות רבות, הקדוש ברוך הוא יברך אתכם בכל מכל כל, חיים ארוכים, שלמים, מלאים תורה, מצוות, גמילות חסדים, ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשי ידיכם. And בעזרת השם, we will see each other next week. ברוך אדוני לעולם, אמן ואמן.
7 years of lectures. Seven months of film editing. Countless hours of study by 2 rabbis. Information we received over 3,000 years ago. All for this moment. Tikkun HaBRIT. The movie.
There's a small member in your body. It shouldn't take over your whole life. If you satiate it, you're never gonna have enough.
The Soper clan, when it gets a hold of something, it does not let go.
Time for us to rectify what we have done.
Normal numbers should be somewhere around 20 million or higher.
You're never gonna have control of it. If you start it, and only feed it when it's permissible according to the Torah.
Pornography is as addictive as crack cocaine.
You're always gonna be happy. Including this world and the next. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen V'Amen.